Welcome to another conversation with Joe Reagan. And Joe, do you feel like royalty?
I do not.
You do
I
not?
couldn't be further from royalty.
Did you try to go get your crown this weekend?
I I don't think that was the point of the protest.
I thought it was.
No,
Everybody
no,
got
no,
a
no, no.
crown.
No, it was a very interesting experience. I mean, for Colorado Springs, and I can't remember the exact. I've heard everything from 12 to 20,000. So I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% certain exactly how many people showed up, but for Colorado Springs, it was quite a bit, and
I heard 12 to 15,000,
that would sound about right.
and
Yeah.
that was on one of the local TV stations, which that's questionable.
I was gonna. It is interesting. I did encounter some media there and noted that they were doing their B-roll footage at the end of the protest when everyone was marching through the streets. So if you watched the news and you saw a fairly empty America the Beautiful Park, I can assure you that that was while everyone was that's what was left when
Mhm.
everyone left to march around the city. And I was there for pretty much the entire time. And at its peak, I mean that park was filled all the way back from the stage, which was set up
Yeah.
close to the museum, all the way back to the fountain.
Well, that's our silo media here in town.
Well, and I mean, there are plenty of social media photos and videos that shows that crowd as well. And I think that that's when you look at the on the ground folks that were there. I mean, it was a
Mhm.
huge crowd. Not a single disturbance. Everyone I met was upbeat, was happy, was smiling.
Yeah.
And I think the purpose of this protest nationally was to raise awareness, obviously, against what the administration is doing, what's happening in Washington, what's not happening in Washington. But when you sit down and talk to people, and this is an important message, I think, for Democrats, because I think a lot of Democrats are looking at the success of this nationwide as an indicator that it's going to mean electoral success for Democrats next year. And when you actually get out and talk to people, which I know is novel for politicians these days, that is not what people were there for. In fact, I think the number of people that showed up, especially in Colorado Springs, is less an indicator of just dissatisfaction with Trump, and it has more to do with dissatisfaction with both parties. And
Yeah.
the number of people that I talked to that were glad to meet somebody that was running for office there, but had some really honest conversations. And I have to say that if anyone is listening that had those conversations, I really appreciated the fact that there were a lot of difficult questions that people asked of me. Specifically, how are you not going to be corrupted when you go to, they're like, I have no trust in the system. So you seem like a nice person now, but what's to say you're going to change? What's to say you're not lying to me right now? And I looked at him honestly, I was like, I can't answer, there's no answer to that question. Because obviously,
Well,
I'm going to tell you I'm not going to be corrupted, but there's no possible way I can
there is.
just.
There is.
And that's what I came back and I said, what I can tell you is that I surround myself with people who are not lobbyists, that are not party insiders, and that I'm really not afraid to lose a race either. So, those are the things that I would say that would be the way to avoid that sort of corruption, is to keep those people close that are going to hold me accountable. And that includes, like we said, we've committed to hosting a number of in-person events. If you go on the Facebook page, you'll see all of them. We don't require pre-registration. Even after Jeff Crank released his town hall, the teletown hall, immediately
Yeah,
went to
that
face.
we gotta
And right,
we gotta that.
we can, and but that was one where it was like a rapid response, where we didn't have any time to build an event, but it was quickly, responded right to his page. Be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the bar right outside your office, and I'll sit there in public. And if people want to come talk to me, then we'll be there. We'll put your town hall on the phone on the table, and we'll listen. And I'm not afraid to tell people where I'm going to be. I'm not going to hide those sorts of things. And that's a commitment that I want to hold myself to once elected as well, because I think it's part of the process. But to go back to the No Kings Day, it really was. And I think that was the overarching message, was that both parties need to substantially change the way they're engaging with the electorate. That extends to when I'm making donor calls in the evening, and I think we've said this before, right? I'm just tonight before we got on the call here, I made 130 phone calls today, and those donors are saying the same thing. They're like, listen, man, like, you sound like a nice person, but we're sick and tired of people calling us asking for money for elections that don't impact us. And, it's frustrating for me because our focus has been exclusively in El Paso County. And so if you look at our donor records, I think it's like it's over 90% of donors to my campaign are all in El Paso County, which is, if you're tracking the other entries of the race, one of my opponents has 10% of her non-family members. That donor base is only 10% of those are voters here in El Paso County. The rest are all from Washington, D.C., from San Francisco, from the Democratic elite, and it's not representative. And I think that that's going to pay dividends. But it's frustrating because donors here in El Paso County are getting calls from across the country saying, well, you gave to another Democrat, why won't you give to me? It's like, stick to your own district. This was your voters. But this is a problem with the system. We rely on a small group of donors. We've got good data, and we try and narrow that folks down. But nobody's willing to broaden the aperture and say, how do we bring new people in? And that's what we've tried to do through our campaign. We treat it like voter outreach, not necessarily like fundraising, where the phone call is more like, hey, I'm running for Congress. I want to hear what's important. Mm-hmm. And then if we have a conversation, they say, well, what can I do to help you? And I say, well, money's gonna get me in front of more people, and that's what we need. But it's, I've said from the beginning, it's about donors, not dollars. And I think that's where we're going. When you look at this quarter's report that just came out, that's exactly what you're going to see. Is I've got more donors. They're all in district, and that's the support that I get. I mean, I'm the guy with the local support, and it's an uphill battle. I know that, but we're in this for the win. We can do it.
Okay, well, you said a little bit earlier that being corrupted, or people are asking you, will you be corrupted? And I could almost guarantee that you won't be.
Because you won't you'll come hunt me down, the chief.
That's right.
Another good question I got too was, I didn't know this about Jeff Crank's staff, but he does not have a veteran on his staff. And so someone said, they're like, I guess a couple of military families, including some Gold Star families, had asked him if he would be willing to do a town hall with military families on one of the bases, to see if he'd be willing to use his congressional authority to go down to the border. And if you're not aware, there are units from Colorado Springs that are currently deployed both to Europe as well as the border. And the response to that was, I really don't have the authority to do that. Which I thought was a surprise. I was like, wait a second. I was like, do you not know you have the authority to do that, or are you just making excuses? Either way, it's a bad answer.
Yeah.
But the question she said was, are you going to hire veterans? And I said, well, I actually think I have the opposite problem, where I think would have a lot of veterans that would want to come work for me. I need to make sure that I'm not hiring just veterans, and that I have a staff that reflects the population of the community. But having those folks that I know, like yourself, that will certainly not give me any slack. In fact, I feel like you're going to treat me even worse once I do get elected.
You don't know how badly I can treat you. You may have had the double bars on your collar, but that means nothing to me.
And that is exactly what I expect of every person that has gotten behind me and supported me, because they know who I am. And my expectation back of them is to make sure I stay who I am. Because I kind of like myself, and I don't want to be that, I don't want to go down that route. And that maybe I am idealistic. Somebody asked me, and that was another good question I got. He's like, you seem like a very kind person. How do you feel like you're not going to get destroyed? And I said, well, I was like, the biggest mistake people can make is kindness is not weakness. And of course, I think my background in the military, I've been in some tough situations before. I can handle myself.
Well,
and still with a smile on my face.
You're a real charmer. Everybody knows that. Yeah, because if I see you screw up and when you're back in D.C., I'll catch that leer back there at 6 o'clock in the morning out of Pete here and be on your doorstep by 8.
Well, and that's like I said, that is the expectation. And
yeah.
And I think and we should be demanding more of that. And I know when you do that, right, we've had some high profile violence over the past, of course, very recently and over the past couple of years, but it is still rare. And that is, And, you can't use that as an excuse to separate yourself from the people that you're supposed to be accountable to.
Well, I'm going to spring a little surprise on you here.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of a Kevin Kiley?
I can't say that I have.
Well, Kevin Kiley is a very independent person.
Mm-hmm.
He's been taking on, as you might say, upper management and not taking any stuff from them. He's been advocating for seating the Arizona 7th congressional member, which is, shoveling stuff against the tide. He's also been advocating for ending this shutdown, and he's working in D.C. every day. And the guy, I happen to like the guy, and I think he would be a tremendous asset in Congress for you and other congressional members. Kevin happens to be a Republican, the California 3rd.
Yeah.
And he's been bucking the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, this is a guy that we need in Congress, even though he's a Republican. He's somebody we need in Congress because he doesn't buy the local line that Mike Johnson is pumping out there. I thought I'd surprise you with that and say, there is a Republican that wants to work with the Dems.
Well,
but the sad part, California, Proposition 51,
yep,
he may lose his seat.
Yep.
And
that I can't control.
I know you can't.
If that was a question of some sort, and it was more of a statement, but if that was a question, my answer to you is this, because again, this was a conversation I had earlier today, where someone said, I feel that our government is out of control. If you're elected, what are you going to do to recapture that control? And I said, well, a lot of that depends on how this election ends up. If the Democrats win the majority in both the House and the Senate, then obviously now you have tools like impeachment that can start to come into play, and not just for the president. And I said specifically, listen, I know a lot of people want to see President Trump impeached, and I think he's clearly at least twice surpassed that threshold.
Third time's the charm.
Well, but then I was like, but the danger you run into is now you've got J.D. Vance, which isn't much better. I said, but impeachment also can work, and you might have more political will to impeach some of your cabinet secretaries. So when you look at RFK and how he's starting to upset even Republicans, those moderate Republicans, Pam Bondi has obviously grossly violated her constitutional duties.
Kash Patel.
Yep, Kash Patel, right? And this list goes on. And Hegseth is another great example. And this is an example of, if you can keep the president and he can continue to sit there and be a figurehead, and we'll just remove all his cabinet secretaries and just stifle the agenda that way. That would be a tool. If that does require the Democrats to have the majority in the House and Senate, and then still be able to, on the Senate side, you still have to be able to appeal to a couple of Republicans to come over and confirm that.
Well, the reason I brought up Kevin Kiley, being a Republican, he's back there working.
Yeah.
And the Dems are back there also. And our congressman is hiding.
Yep.
I mean, this guy has shown me that even though he's a Republican, he's willing to work for his constituents. And yet we have Jeff Crank, who is hiding and does not want to work for his constituents.
Yep. Well, let me continue that thought, because one of the areas that, let's say, and I think this is a reality, that the Democrats don't retake the House next cycle. I don't think the Democrats have done what they need to do, and they're not really doing it to take back a majority of neither the House nor the Senate. And so what tools as a minority, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, what are the tools that are available to the minority party to help take back that control? And the answer, and we're seeing this with the Epstein files, the use of the discharge petition. And I think that when you identify, and with the margins as they are, you only need, 4 or 5 Republicans to come join you on that discharge petition, and now suddenly you can get stuff done. Small things, and a lot of these things are going to be narrow. And someone said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? And literally anyone that knows anything about Marjorie Taylor Greene knows that the fact that we're even having this conversation it just speaks to the insanity of where we're at in reality. But she's come out and said that allowing the healthcare subsidies to expire would be detrimental to her constituents, and she believes that they need to continue those subsidies. And so you sit there and say, okay, this is an opportunity to to put into the discharge petition a piece of legislation narrowly focused on that one particular issue, and then make everyone vote on it. And so then you can get even like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's going to disagree with Democrats on literally everything else, but say, okay, you said this, we want to do it. Let's do it. And that's, I think, where you can start to use some of these legislative tools effectively and creatively to pull away on those margins. And Rand Paul's another one, right? So he came out he's very much against the tariffs. And say, okay, well, let's do something specific to the tariffs. Keep it narrow and small to whittle away on these things that are grossly unpopular, right? You put the big, beautiful bill out there because there was literally something everyone hated in it, but they all had to get behind it because Trump had to get behind it. And so you take the opposite approach, which goes very, very narrow. Find those people that are willing to compromise on those issues. It's a different coalition every time, but those votes are there with the narrow margin. And that's where, if the Democrats continue on this trend of not supporting winning candidates and they continue to ignore constituents, then they will lose the midterm elections. The Republicans will maintain that majority, and Democrats are going to have to figure out how to use these tools more effectively, and they're not doing it right now.
Yeah. Well, I understand, and circling back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the reasons she's taken the stance on the ACA is because her son got hit with the increase. It's now personal.
Yep.
It's not professional. It's personal now.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody said, that they doubt if they'd ever say the words Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that she's becoming a good Democrat. So,
and even but you know what? And I was listening to NPR the other day. I had some windshield time, and they interviewed her and they asked her about this, and she goes, "Listen, no, I'm a staunch Republican. I'm 100% behind Donald Trump, but on this issue, we need a plan." And I think it's showing that when an issue becomes personal to somebody, or especially a legislator, and that can be because it's literally personally connected to them, or maybe you have a constituent that is able to make that connection, to make it personal in that sense, then that's where you can really start to get stuff done. And I think that's where, for those folks that are sitting there and saying, well, what can I do right now? And the answer is, listen, I know Jeff Crank doesn't respond to his emails. I know he rarely answers the phone, but keep calling because somebody's getting through. And, maybe at some point you hit that nail. Maybe you get it. You get them cornered and you tell them a story and it resonates with them. And maybe something gets done, and it's painful. It's going to be a painful another year, but you got to keep driving as much as you can, even though it's going to be frustrating.
Tell me about his town hall, because I signed up to speak and I didn't get the call.
Really? Let me summarize it we've got 9 minutes.
I think, 30 seconds should do it, right?
Well, I was going to just say, I mean, all the questions were softballs. Not a single one was a difficult question. Every answer was clearly rehearsed, and there was zero substance. And I will say that the noise and the crowd around me, I did not actually hear most of it. So sorry, Jeff. I was trying to listen, but there were more people that wanted to talk to me, and they're more important to me than you are. But the questions I did hear was first and foremost about Space Command, which again is a very, very frustrating one, because for years now we've talked about how important Space Command is for this district. And now suddenly it's like, oh, well, we're only losing 1,000 jobs. Just 1,000 jobs. What? Not a big deal.
He's forgetting the multiplier.
Yep. And, that's one of those, like, okay, you're using statistics just to downplay your failures. What else did he ask? There was a question on healthcare. And again, blatantly lying about the fact that these are these funds are going to, this is about illegal aliens getting healthcare, which is not true. And again, this is a 1996 law passed by Democrats that if you are an undocumented, and there's some great infographics out there. If you really are curious what funding is available and where these things go to, because at the end of the day, and again, this is when on the left, when I talk to people on the left and they beat me up for not being for Medicare for all, my retort is, listen, at the end of the day, somebody writes the check no matter what. So if you're in this country and you're not documented, or if you're in this country as an immigrant, you're a green card holder or whatever, there are only so many benefits that you are eligible for. Most of those are not public benefits. So like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, you don't qualify for these. Even though you would be paying taxes, if you're working, you are going to be paying taxes that fund these programs. But if you go to the hospital, you will be treated. It's not always great care. It's through the emergency room, which means it's more expensive. Those bills ultimately get passed back to all of us in the form of the hospital absorbs those costs into overhead, and then the overhead is then divided into our bills. So whether you like it or not, if you are using healthcare anywhere, whether you're a private payer, Medicare, Medicaid, doesn't matter, TRICARE, either way, you are paying at some point for someone that does not have insurance to get healthcare. So we do have to figure out that plan, because at the end of the day, right, we have to figure out why healthcare costs are so high, focus on that, drive the cost down. But this is 100%, as Marjorie Taylor Greene did identify. And I was speaking to someone today, actually. She was a healthcare broker. So she is someone that would be marketing and helping you navigate the insurance system for both the ACA, Marketplace, Medicare, Medicaid. And said, one of the things that nobody's talking about is that open enrollment starts in 9 days. And even if these subsidies get cut, one of the things, your cost is tied to your salary over the past year. So if, for example, you are a government employee and you just got fired, well, you still made a salary all last year, so your healthcare premium is going to be based on the salary of the job that you just got fired from. If you have an ACA plan or got laid off from any other role for that matter, you still received a salary last year. And we are starting to see furloughs within our defense industry as well. There are several major corporations locally that have just laid off a number or furloughed a number of their workers, which is going to result in a layoff in the long term.
Really?
Yep.
Layoffs here in Colorado Springs?
Yep, it's happening. And no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it. But those folks are going to run into the same issue, where if you're on the ACA, your premiums are going to be based on whatever your salary was last year, and now you're out of work, and your premiums are going to go up without the subsidy. So now you're seeing people that were paying, $400 for insurance, and that's going to go up to, $1,200 a month with no income coming in. So this is one of those compounding problems where, there's a lot of pain that's going to come out. And of course, the holidays, Christmas is 60 days away, something like that.
Close.
Yeah. So it's, and again, as a nonprofit leader in town, we're seeing it across the board. That demand is going up on a number of ways, and it's only going to get worse. And every nonprofit in town is also seeing the same thing, which is increased demand, decreased resources. It's going to be very painful.
Well,
yeah, that was about Jeff. That was Jeff Crank's town hall. Yeah, nothing came out of that. It really was. It was background noise, because that's really all it was. If you wanted to fall asleep, you can find the recording of Jeff Crank's town hall and just listen to him drone on about nothing.
I'm waiting to get his Friday email and have him boast about how great it was. And then I think I will sit down and tap the keys. But other than that, what's in the future?
What is in the future? Well,
next week, next month.
So obviously, first and foremost, get your ballot. If you have not cast your ballot for the school board, please do that. And if you have questions as to who you should be voting for, the Teachers Union, the League of Women Voters, all have some pretty valuable voting guides to help drive you in that direction. On my website, I believe you should be able to find all the school board candidates that I've personally endorsed. I don't have that list in front of me, I won't say it because I don't want to leave anybody out accidentally. But I have met with pretty much all the school board candidates across the county. And I do have I think I've pretty much publicly posted my favorites. If that sways your vote, please do follow that. And then, of course, we have the ballot initiative focused on retaining already collected taxes so that kids can have school lunch.
Yeah.
And again, retaining taxes that have already been taken out, not increasing taxes. And again, a really valuable program. And I'll say this, the kids enjoy it too. The kids really think it's something special, which is weird because I don't remember school lunches being that good. But the kids that I talk to are all like, this is great.
Well, you're part of the peanut butter and jelly crowd. I mean,
That's true. Well, I still am. Everyone makes fun of me. They're like, oh, you must have all the money in the world. You're a big time skier, right? I was like, I'm a disabled veteran, so my ski pass costs me nothing, and I pretty much will eat a crushed up peanut butter sandwich that's been sitting in my parka. The parka that I've owned for 20 years now.
Well,
I'm a ski bum is what I am.
Okay, Joe, anything else? It looks like we've shot through this 30 minutes.
We always do.
There
was a request. I don't know if you saw this, and if you want to go back and look at it, on Reddit, on the Colorado Springs subreddit thread, I did host an Ask Me Anything session on Reddit, which is a lot of. So if you go onto the Colorado Springs subreddit, search Joe Reagan. There's a couple of different threads about me, but there is an Ask Me Anything that we answered a lot of different questions from folks. And I think one of the funniest ones that does directly relate to our conversation is people believe that we should rebrand this podcast and we should call it the Joe Reagan Experience because everyone for some reason confuses my name with Joe Rogan. And someone said you could get a lot more listeners if you called it the Joe Reagan Experience.
Really? If you want to rebrand it, we can rebrand it.
I feel like that'd be a trademark violation just waiting to happen, which would also get us more attention.
Well, yeah. Okay. Thank you so very much for listening to another conversation with Joe Reagan. And Joe, you have to do what we forgot last time.
Website, Joe Reagan, ReaganForColorado.com.
That's it.
And like I said, we are building a lot of momentum, becoming one of those founding supporters of the campaign by going to ReaganForColorado.com. It's about donors, not dollars. So whether it's $1, $5, $10, the maximum is $3,000. We would take those too.
Okay.
But showing that support that we're getting from the community is really, really important because that's what we're going to have to use. That's what we'll use to justify what we're going after is the community support for just those grassroots donors. That's what's going to get us through this. So please
give a listen, give a look,
and of course follow us on socials. Like, share.
I got to tell you this, and I heard a rumor about this, that Joe wants to see you and he wants to hear you.
I do. Take a selfie. I love it. I went to the Switchbacks game on Saturday night, and it was their last home game of the year. And it was pretty funny. I was walking through, and my campaign manager noted it during the No Kings as well. She's like, you really can't go more than 10 feet without somebody recognizing you. We didn't make it very far at the No Kings. I think I made it 100 feet. And then, I was at the Switchbacks game, and like 4 or 5 people stopped me. Like, hey, you're Joe Reagan. So, but no, absolutely. You can always find me walking downtown. I'm always out and about. But please, stop me, grab a selfie, post it to social media. It's getting the word out there. It's what it's all about.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Gary.
Till next time.